If you're the type of parent that says, I don't really want to be my child's primary sexual health educator, but I know I need to talk a bit about the sex stuff, then I'm here for you, parents. This is the bare minimum sex talk. It's like the cliff notes of the sex talk with your child. It's the sex talk that you need to have at each age group. So there's 4 age groups, so there's gonna be 4 sex talks in the bare minimum sex talk. If you're new here, I'm Kathleen and I make YouTube videos for parents on how to talk about sex and answer sex questions that their child may have. Let's start with the primary age, but if you've got a child that's not in the primary age, check out the description below where I've got the timestamps and just jump to the section that's most relevant to your parenting stage. If you've got a child age 3, 4, 5, or 6, they will ask this question. Do not deflect it. Respond in a positive way saying, that's a great question. Where do you think babies come from? This gives you a moment to gather your thoughts as well as see what your child's thinking. Be truthful in your answer. Talk about the sperm and the egg cell and have an age-appropriate book on hand so that you can say, hey, that's a great question. Let's take a look at this book and see what happens when the sperm and the egg cell meet. You don't have to talk about sex at all when you answered this question to a child in the primary age. If you want to know why you don't have to say the word sex when answering this question, check out this video where I explain just that, as well as give an example of how I would recommend answering this question to a child. You've successfully avoided having to say the word sex during the primary years, but now you've got an intermediate age child, so you're going to need to know how to explain what is sex. Many of the parents that I talk to want to avoid explaining sex at this age as vaginal, anal, and oral sex. When I probe them a little bit and ask them, why do you want to exclude anal and oral sex? The main answer that I receive is that they feel it's just too much for their child to know at this age. Parents, I highly encourage you not to separate the different types of sex when explaining it to your child. If you can explain that a penis goes into a vagina to your intermediate age child, then you can say a penis goes into an anus, as well as a mouth can go on a penis, vagina, vulva, or anus as well. By explaining sex at this age as vaginal, anal, and oral, you are providing the medically accurate and factual information about what sex actually is. And your child will be educated and informed with the correct information. And parents, once you just say it all, it's done. And you can move forward with all the other sex talks that you're going to be needing to have with your child. But, oh yeah, this is the bare minimum sex talk. So you're just going to have the next, so there's just 2 more talks. Middle schoolers have loads of questions. They're going through puberty, they're experiencing hormonal changes and feeling attraction towards others. And this is the age when they're usually going to unintentionally stumble across porn. Parents, I encourage you to talk about porn, preferably before they unintentionally view it. Be ready to explain to them what is porn, who watches it, why it's made, and teach them about porn literacy. If you're like, oh my goodness, Kathleen, no, I'm not ready to talk about any of that with my middle school age child, don't worry, parents, I've got you. Check out the porn playlist that I've got here. It answers all of those questions as well as prepares you to have the porn talk with your middle school age child. Yay, you've made it to the high school years. If you're gonna have one last sex talk with your child, you're going to need to heavily focus it on consent. By this age, you've already covered puberty, pregnancy prevention, STIs, sexually transmitted diseases, porn literacy, setting and maintaining boundaries, sexting, sexually implicit and explicit images and clothing. You've talked about the circles of sexuality as well as gender identity and gender expression, sexual orientation as well as masturbation. Wait, you're doing the bare minimum. So you haven't covered the majority of that. Hopefully they've learned it somewhere. In the high school age, dating, friendships, romantic and affectionate relationships, as well as sexual situations will arise. And the main theme around all of those topics needs to be around consent. Talking about consent with your high schooler goes beyond just explaining no means no and stop means stop. Of course, you're going to want to reinforce that. If a person says, no, I don't want to do that, or stop, that hurts, you stop and you don't go any further. And communicate with that person that they are okay and you want to talk about it. In this consent talk, you're going to want to include consent is needed before and during any sexual activity. Consent includes both verbal and nonverbal communication. Consent can be revoked at any time. Everybody is allowed to change their mind. A person may have consented to an activity or sexual behavior, and then once it got started, they realize they're not really enjoying it and they don't like it, and now they want to stop. Therefore, it stops. Sexual activity is only acceptable and enjoyable if it's consensual throughout the duration. If you've got a child in the intermediate age, I'd encourage you to check out this video on consent and how to explain it using non-sexual scenarios, because it will give you an idea about how to update your language on explaining consent and modeling consent in the home with your high schooler. Wait, don't check out that video because you're doing the bare minimum. So that's it. That's the bare minimum sex talk. It's just 4 sex talks spread out over the course of 18 years. You've got it. Do not subscribe to my channel because I am here bringing parents new videos every week about how to talk about sex and answer sex questions that their child may have. I mean, that's not of interest to you. So, or is it?